Morocco is going to become the most powerful economy in the entire Maghreb. Here's something you guys should know about Morocco. They were the first country to recognize America's independence when we decided to break away from the British. Go Morocco. Thank you, Mohammed III. The word Maghreb is Arabic for sunset, and it was the meaning of the Western Islamic Empire. At that time, Morocco was the jewel of the Maghreb. If you learn more about the country, especially their economy, you'll see that it's going to happen again. Like I said, it won't be their first time. Morocco can trace its history all the way back to the Phoenician Empire around 7 BC, so 2,700 years ago. The first town that can come to mind is Lixus. When ancient Carthage fell to Rome, more city-states along Morocco began to grow further. It was under the Islamic Empire where Morocco started to become a great seat of power for all of northwestern Africa. Throughout the centuries of the Islamic era, great cities like Fez, Marrakesh, Meknes, Tangier, and Rabat emerged and became great commercial and learning centers that dwarfed whatever Europe had at the time in comparison. In fact, Morocco is kind of responsible for spurring the Portuguese to begin the age of exploration with the town of Ceuta. See, the king of Portugal at the time was inspired by his son with their new naval fleet to start sacking the town of Ceuta. And yes, the Portuguese ended up seizing this town, but what the king discovered was that this town was not only rich, it was richer than any town they have ever read about in history. It was by far richer than Madrid or Lisbon. And that was the father of Henry the Navigator, who spurred the whole naval revolution that happened in Europe. And even while Spain, Portugal, England, France were colonizing and conquering, the power of Morocco kept growing until about the 17th and the 18th century under the Saadian dynasty. By 1912, Morocco became a Spanish and a French protectorate. But by 1956, Morocco declared their full independence. In a decade, they claimed sovereignty over the Western Sahara right here, which of course became a big deal for the neighbor who hates them, Algeria. Algeria declared their independence in the 60s. They wanted to make sure they got rid of every single French and Western influence that they could, and it was quite brutal, but well-deserved because the French butchered Algeria. Because Morocco is a bit more Western friendly than Algeria, who kind of went full-on authoritarian fundamentalist, they have constantly been at odds for about 70 years. They had a 16-year war about it from 1975 to 1991 called the Western Sahara War. The border between Algeria and Morocco was closed in 1994. 20% of Western Sahara is controlled by the Polisario Front, which is pretty much an anti-colonial, anti-Morocco group that wants full sovereignty over Western Sahara and doesn't want any Moroccan influence. Algeria gives the Polisario Front unconditional support no matter how brutal they are because they want to see Morocco constantly weakened. But if you read this paper, Economic Integration in the Maghreb, you'll see that's just not going to happen. Morocco is a smaller population and a fraction of the size of Algeria. Algeria's economy is almost 100% dependent on oil and natural gas infrastructure. That's it. Morocco does not have fossil fuels, yet they still happen to be the second largest economy in the region, and they are modernizing quickly, and they have a much more diversified economy. The people of Morocco have a better quality of life and a higher GDP per capita than Algeria, and because Morocco is a much more stable country without any crazy, violent, bloody overthrows, they get a great deal more of foreign direct investment than any other country in the Maghreb. It dropped a little during COVID, but it's coming right back up by 2023. Example of Morocco being a diversified economy is that their main exports are cars, electrical components, fertilizers, clothing, textiles, fish, and seafood. That is quite diverse for such a small country. 95% of Algeria's exports are hydrocarbons. So when oil goes down or natural gas goes down, the Algerian economy suffers. They need to diversify beyond that, kind of like Morocco. Looks like Algeria might be able to do that. They already have a pretty strong trading relationship with a lot of the Western countries, and that's been exponentially growing because of the Russia-Ukraine war, meaning that Europe, especially Italy, France, and Spain, are relying heavily, much more on Algeria's natural gas and oil. We're not there yet, but maybe one day Algeria and Morocco may be ready to mend ties. Algeria's President Tebboune said something incredible not too long ago. It said that he does not want to shuffle further into Arab division when asked about the Western Sahara. After Morocco had an earthquake, they had a huge Algerian outpouring of support. Another promising diplomatic opportunity are the ties between the new Niger government and Morocco. Mohammed VI, Morocco's king, is granting Niger and the Sahel countries access to the Atlantic Ocean. Now look at Morocco's trading partners. It is quite diverse, especially with trade with India, Brazil. You could see that they have a lot of trade with the G7 and the BRICS nations, but they are also on good terms with the breakaway nations like Niger, Mauritania. The fact that Morocco has a healthy relationship with most of its neighbors and very healthy trade relationships with so many different economic blocs, along with a very diversified economy, it looks like they are poised only to grow. Of course, no country's perfect. Morocco's not perfect. They still have a lot of progress to do. I mean, my friends have told me when they visited Morocco that it's beautiful. The cafes are wonderful, but the cafes are filled by men because a lot of the women are still just not allowed to go out. I'm aware of a lot of the brutal and unjust practices towards people who disagree with the government. Long term, I'm optimistic about the Maghreb's future, especially Morocco's place in it and the world. I'm the Geo Hussar. I love talking about geopolitics and informing you guys about things you may not have known. If you found this post useful, give me a follow, and thanks for watching.